Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Tanks, and welcome back today to an informative video. Holy moly, Max, you're actually passing on information. God damn! An informative video about Frontlines 2019. Now, you might be watching this the day it comes out, you might be watching this in 10 months time in the last episode of Frontlines, but hopefully you are going to find this video useful, guys. Now, this is not going to involve any gameplay. This is not going to involve some fancy editing, anything like that. This is just going to be me getting across information to you guys and my opinion on which tanks I feel you should play. And that is what this video is about. What tanks I think are the best tanks to play in Frontlines. Now, I have done this quite quickly. Just because I've played, this is the first day of Frontlines, by the way. It's, I don't know what day it is today, Monday. I'm almost at rank 24, so I've played for 4 or 5 hours this morning, maybe if not a little bit more. I'm a bit ashamed to admit that. But I've kind of seen what tanks I've played well, what tanks other people have been playing well, kind of everything like that. Just judge. I think I've got a good opinion on what seems to be playing well in the mode and what doesn't. And I'm just going to run through with you guys what I feel you should be playing. I've split all the tanks up into different tiers. The God tier tanks. This is kind of borrowed from Flammo, if any of you are watching the World of Warships community contributor. When he does like rank battle seasons, he splits them up into God tier, good tier, average tier, and bad. Just don't go near them. So I've kind of done that, and I'm just going to jump pretty much straight in. If there's any tanks that I've missed, guys, like, I know I've probably missed quite a lot, and I'll, like, generalize some tanks. If there's any that I've missed that you want to know, just leave a comment, say, Max, how about the, I don't know, Chimera, because I know I'm not going to pick the Chimera, because not enough people have it at the minute. But if you want to know, just ask me what the tank is, and I usually reply to comments quite quickly, and I will let you know, guys. So, starting off, very much tippy top God tier tanks, the tanks that most people are playing, that I think are being played the best. I have been playing the best in personally. We're going to start off with the Projeto Mod 46, the tier 8 Italian premium medium tank. I think this is the tippy top, the best tank you can play in Frontlines, in my opinion. And that's because it's a versatile tank. It's got a really nice gun that, again, is versatile. You can get clip damage off if you're only going to have a quick moment to peek on someone, or it can slug it out in those long-term fights because it's got an okay DPM if you're just firing one at a time. It's also pretty accurate, good aim time, and probably more importantly, a very maneuverable tank, and that's something that you're going to be seeing a lot. I'm not going to go into this much depth with all the tanks, just the ones that I think 100% are the tippy top ones to use. As well as the Projeto, there's also the Pantera, the actual tech tree standard version. I think this is very similar. I haven't quite got the top engine yet, but both tanks are quite similar. I'd probably recommend the Projeto over the Pantera, just because it makes more credits, but both tanks, very, very good picks in Frontlines. Now, moving on, next tank, which is, I think, my favourite tank personally at the minute in Frontlines, the one I'm doing the most consistently in, is the Lorraine 40T. Again, very mobile tank. I think that's the key in Frontlines at the minute. You need something mobile to be able to get around the battlefield, be able to react to situations, react to different things that are happening. Obviously, at tier 8, there's not much better than the Lorraine. 60 km/h top speed, decent horsepower per ton, and it's got that meaty autoloader as well, which is very, very nice. Another reason I massively recommend this tank, very high standard penetration, which means you don't have to fire premium rounds hardly at all. And yeah, it's just, you do 1200 damage, you can hold people back, wait for your team to get there. It's just a very, very good tank, very good for reacting. Next of all, we've got the T44. Now, this also applies for the T44-100. Basically, just a very good all-rounder, got decent armor, good gun, decent mobility again. It's just that all-rounder tank that just seems to work so well. And I'd like to just say again, guys, all of these tanks are in my opinion, but like I say, I would like to think I have a fairly good opinion of what tanks are good and what tanks are bad. If you disagree, just let me know. This is all about trying to give you information, guys, and trying to help you out. This is not me just going, no, this tank is better, this tank is better. Yeah, the T44-100 and the T44 as well, I would put into God tier, the best tiers in Frontlines. Next of all, where is it? I'm trying to pick, obviously, most of my God tier are ones that I've got. The Centurion 5-1 is next on my list. Now, why is this over like the Centurion 1? Just because this tank has that, the gun on it is insane, and just the armor compared to the standard Centurion, the upper plate being a lot stronger than it is. Again, very nice mobility on the tank. It's a bit quicker, I believe, than the standard Centurion as well. This thing can get around the battlefield. This is quite good at holding points because it's got a good DPM. It's obviously got very good turret armor. You can stay hold down. You can just hold guys off for ages, track people, make sure they're getting shot at by your other tanks, which is why I'd put that in my top tier, my God tiers. Now on to the Defender or the Object 252U, both the same tank. Pretty obvious. This, in my personal opinion, is more towards the lower end of this. I don't play the heavy tank so much just because I prefer the mobility and everything. Because, for example, if you're defending, you push right up to a cap just as the enemy team cap it, and then you have to try and back all the way off quickly before you get arty striked by the zone going red. I find you struggle in that. And also, if you're attacking and the enemies overwhelm you, or you need to switch to another front quickly to try and help take that, you do struggle a bit more in the heavy tanks. But obviously, Defender, still God tier. The armor on it is absolutely ridiculous. You're going to give most tanks at tier 8 a hard time with the front of your tank, especially if they're firing standard rounds. It can be an absolute wedge getting into the enemy caps, just driving a wedge through, just being that tank that goes in there and goes, right, I am here, come at me, bring it on. And that's why the Defender is a very, very good tank. Next one is a tank that I don't actually have, which is the Kenard Van Action 10. It's similar to the Defender, hold down, absolute beast, got insane DPM. I've seen a lot of those played very, very well, just because I believe the gun is so good and they're so good hold down, and the mobility is not terrible. Again, personally, I probably wouldn't pick it, but I've seen it be played very, very well, so I again would put that in my God tier. That is it for my God tier. That is all of them. Again, you guys might be going, oh, well, this is my tank, I play this very well. Yeah, that's just personally you. Personally for me, and I would say, leaning in towards generally, I would say those are the tanks that I would highly, highly recommend to Frontlines. And if you have one of them or more of them, I'd recommend that you have those in your lineup every single time. Now, moving on to good tiers. These are the tanks that, yeah, they're probably going to play well. They're going to do well. They're definitely not to be overlooked. Definitely should play them if you need to. First things first, I've got all these written down, guys, just so I could try not to quite be so crap. The Strv S1, along with the UDES as well. I haven't got the UDES personally. Obviously, very stealthy tank destroyer, good for getting into positions just behind the fight, and because they've got such high average standard penetration as well, they are very, very good. Just at doing that damage, just trying to support tanks, stopping your team from getting outflanked, everything like that. Same kind of goes for the SU-130. Again, nice big old gun. Quite fast tank destroyers as well, the UDES, the SU-130, and this also applies for the Scorpion. I'm going to kind of group these four tanks together. Big guns, high standard pen. They do a lot. The reason most of these aren't in my God tier is just because of how lightly armored they are. Most of the time, obviously, people are going for kills. You see an S1, you see SU, Scorpion, anything like that. Usually, as soon as you're spotted, you're one of the first things to be focused. And as well, with the combat reserves, the artillery strike, these things get absolutely battered by artillery strikes, which is why I put them in my good tier and not God tier. So another one that I've missed out kind of in that same ballpark is the Charioteer. Again, a very, very nice tank destroyer. But again, it gets focused quite easily. Even though it does usually do a lot of damage in return. And sometimes you just can't quite live long enough to get that, like 5 minutes to get your respawns up and everything like that. But again, good tanks to pick, definitely not gonna go amiss. Next of all, IS-3A. I'm going to try and steer clear from talking about what this thing's all about as much as possible, but it's got an absolutely brutal gun. The reason this tank isn't in my god tier tanks is because I think it is let down by its gun depression and its armor, and it's not massively fast. Again, relocating isn't great, and its accuracy at long ranges absolutely sucks. So if you're relocating and there's a tank relocating the other side, like a couple hundred meters away, because obviously Frontline, such a big map, you do have to fire at long distances, you do miss quite a lot of shots. But again, this is still good tier. I'm not saying that these tanks suck, I'm still saying these tanks are definitely good to play. Next tank we have is the Samoa. Similar to the 5100, but I'm not going to click on the 5100 because it will confuse people, because that's not in my good tier. Samoa, it's got decent armor, it's got trolley armor, it's got that 5-round autoloader again, and it's got decent mobility. I personally haven't got it, but I've seen a lot of them be played, and I've seen them be played quite well. Now, good tier as well, I've gone for the 90GF. The reason I've gone for the 90GF is because it's a very good damage dealing light tank. It's not a pure scout. The light tanks, I found tricky to place them, just because if it's a very good light tank player, they can be borderline god tier. But for your standard World of Tanks player in Frontline, your light tanks are probably going to be, you probably want to give them a miss. The Bulldog, I've put it in good tier just because of how good its damage dealing capabilities are with this 90mm gun. And obviously light tanks are very utilitarian in this mode, because they can use 3 of the reserves, so they can help cap everything like that. And also the Bulldog is so fast with 72 km/h top speed. I think it's also very good for that. Also in there, I've put the Batchat, similar kind of thing. Personally, it's not my favourite tank, but it has got a nice autoloader. You can go in, you can do some damage, you can get out nice and quick. Again, you've got that utilitarian use with all of the reserves and everything like that. But again, light tanks are very player dependent, pretty much. Also, good tier, the standard IS-3. Again, similar to the IS-3A. This kind of makes up for the IS-3A's really poor accuracy. Like, the IS-3's never been, a sniper, but it is better than the IS-3A. But it's not quite god tier, just because its mobility lets it down slightly. It's not ridiculously slow, but it's, not amazing. And also the armor, especially these days when you've got most things like Scorpions, SUs, Lorraines, things like that firing at the front of it, it's not really going to do very well. Next of all, we've got the Zed Tank Destroyer. This is a slightly more heavily armored tank destroyer, which is, again, why it's in god tier more, because it doesn't quite get focused so much. It's not not in god tier, sorry, in good tier. It doesn't quite get focused so much because it has got armor and it can bounce rounds. Again, the gun is brutal, not great at long ranges, but not too shabby. The reason it's in good tier and not god tier is, at the end of the day, it's a tank destroyer without a turret, and it hasn't got great gun depression. You can get out-tracked in this thing, circled by medium tanks, and because it's a tier 8 tank destroyer, it hasn't got very good health. 1,100 hit points is not ideal, which is why it's in good tier. It's not, terrible. Again, still a very good pick, just wouldn't take it 100%. This is the best tank that you're going to be able to play in the game. Next, kind of 2 tanks again that are kind of similar, the Liberté and the Patriot. Both tanks, good frontal armor, not amazing at the side, and yeah, they've got good guns. They can hold their own in a frontal engagement, especially when you're right back defending those guns or attacking those guns when you're in the city. These tanks are pretty good. But at longer ranges, when you've got the sides exposed and stuff like that, the side armor obviously isn't very good. And the, what am I trying to say? The speed isn't very good, so if you're stuck, again, in a dodgy place, you can't relocate that easily. And as well, these tanks have got very bad engine decks. Like, I've done a lot to Libertés especially, and Patriots as well. With the artillery strike, they do suffer as well. But again, pretty solid picks, not too bad at all. Now, that was my good tier. Again, guys, if I've missed tanks out, specific tanks, I do apologise. Just write comments, just say, what do you think about this, and I'll let you know. Moving on to your average tier. So these are your tanks that, if you have a good game, they can probably do alright, but I probably wouldn't take them in if you have a choice, but they still can do okay. So, in this, I've kind of grouped some tanks together. The rest of the light tanks, the ELC even 90, very stealthy tanks. You can get in and around the map without being spotted a lot, but the gun badly lets it down. You can't really do a lot. Again, utilitarian, but, you know. Similar to the T92, it's very stealthy, gets around. The gun isn't too bad, but the penetration's quite low. You're not doing a massive amount of damage, and you're going to get focused quite a lot, quite quickly, I find. The LT432, wherever it is, this I found very difficult whether to put it in good tier or average tier. I just think the damage is a little low, and I've played a couple of games in it, and I find that the gun just isn't quite good enough for me. Personally, again, this is a very, very blurry between the two, kind of good tier and average tier. It's each their own. I would say this is a tank that's very much player skill over anything else. Just because, yeah, you know. Again, a tank that's kind of blurry. I put the Centurion 5 in my god tier. The Centurion 1 is, again, kind of between good tier and average tier, just because of that hull armor. It is so much worse, and it is a bit slower. But again, still, I would say the Centurion's probably between the two. Other average tier tanks, you've got the American medium tanks. So, career pattern, the pilot's not too bad. Super Pershing is alright. Super Pershing obviously loses some of the mobility of the others, but makes up for it with the armor. Still quite versatile with the fact that the gun's pretty good, and it's got the gun depression mixed in with the armor. So again, you can have good games, but personally, again, I think it's just a little bit too slow. You get outflanked, sides, rear, it's not ideal, and you can get out circle very quickly. And if you get stuck in the wrong part of the map, you're going to be stuck there for a while. And something else as well, mobility-wise, this is for all of the tanks that I've mentioned, mobility. If you're in the fight and you need to back off to go get to the repair zone and then go back, it can take too long in a lot of these tanks as well. A lot of the other preferential matchmaking tanks, obviously, they're slightly worse. So the FCM50T, good tank. But because it's preferential matchmaking, it's not quite as good as the rest of the tanks. WZ111 as well. Average tier, can have a good game. Obviously, you're probably going to have to fire more heat rounds and things in it. And the armor, while it's not bad, is not insane. So again, that's there. Same with the 112. Same with the Type 59. If this thing had a good rate of fire, it'd be similar to the T44-100, obviously. But once again, it's that preferential matchmaking. The aim time, the accuracy is terrible. And the rate of fire is, quite honestly, a bit trash. A lot of tanks like that, so similar things. They're kind of your average tier. You can play them well, but I probably wouldn't recommend. As well as that, in your average tier, you've got things like the MUTs, the CDC, basically your average medium tanks. Even things such as the... what's this called? Revelarize and the I had it a second ago, STG, things like that. They're your average tier. Your tech tree tanks as well, such as the TVP VTU. I can't even think others. Pershing, everything like that. They're in your average tier. Again, pretty good, but then they're not ever really going to win any awards for amazing. Pershing, probably a bit on the slow side. The other mediums that I mentioned, things like CDC, the MUTs, stuff like that, just too lightly armoured. Again, the artillery strikes absolutely shred you and everything like that. Also, I want to give a special mention. I know this counts as a light, but I would put the Lynx in my average tier as well. Again, very player dependent, but I just think hasn't got the view range. It's too lightly armoured. Yes, you can zip around the battlefield. You can go cap places left, right and centre. And that's what's good about it. And the gun, I just don't think is quite up to it either. So I would firmly put the Lynx in my average tier. Whew, this is getting... I'm getting tired after all this. ISU, I've also put in average, just because it's got that such a big gun. You can do a massive amount of damage, which is why it's in average. But other than that, again, it's not overly fast. The armor's not great. So you can have good games, but again, probably wouldn't recommend it so much. Next, this is another tank that I was kind of hovering with. T69, it's got the autoloader. I just personally don't think it's quite quick enough. 13.5 horsepower per ton. It's not fast enough. You can't get it where it needs to be. However, again, it's average tier, not bad tier, just because when it gets there, those 4 shells, 240, it can do some work. It is not bad at all. Other tanks that are kind of average, T32, again, good on ridgelines, great once you get it to where it needs to be, but it's quite slow in getting there. The Chinese 110, again, pretty good. Once you get there, the armor's okay, but not great. But again, it's just a bit too slow. Obviously, not quite as good as the IS-3. Same with, I put the 53 TP in there. I've not really played the 53 TP. I think it's got quite a good gun. Armor's not amazing. And again, it's a little bit towards the slow side as well. So kind of all of those tanks similar in and around there, I would put in my average tier. Now, finally, cool. Again, like I say, guys, I just want to keep reiterating this. I obviously am going to miss tanks. There's a lot of tier 8 tanks in the game. I'm not going to be able to get them all. But, you know, things like the VKA, completely forgot about that. I'd probably chuck that in average tier. HWK, average tier. Indomhansa, average. But anyway, moving on to the bad tier tanks. These are the tanks that, unless you don't have really any other choice, I would not recommend at all. Starting off in that, the Tiger 2. I feel bad, and come on Wargaming, please give this thing some love. It needs a buff. The Tiger 2, it's got the good gun. It can kind of do the damage when you get there, but the DPM is not great. The armor is non-existent, so you can't really push anywhere without just dying ridiculously quickly. And again, it's just a bit too slow. It can be caught up by arty strikes. It gets shredded trying to cross bits of open ground. Everything like that. Similar to the VK100, it's just too slow. It's just too slow. If you can get it into a cap, you can take caps, you can bully people. But in my opinion, it's just too slow. You just can't work with it. If you're attacking, sometimes the fight will run away from you, or you'll get there, all your friends will be dead, and you'll just die because you just get outnumbered. If you're defending, same situation where you're trying to get to the cap, you sit in the cap, you get to the cap, your team loses it, and then you get killed by the artillery strike. I've seen it happen 3, maybe 4 or 5 times to VKs. They're just not fast enough. The VK100 is just not fast enough, and it can't get back to the repair points at all. Next one, the MX-65T, wherever it is. Just a bad tank. A terrible, terrible, terrible tank. Just don't recommend it at all. AMX AC-48, while we're here, armor's not really good. I'd probably put this more towards the top end of the bad tier, so top to average. It's just the armor's not very good. It's quite inflexible with the long reload on the 3-shot autoloader. And to be honest, I don't really have a lot of experience with it, so I don't really know, to be honest. Now, moving into another kind of grouping of tanks. Slow tank destroyers. That being Gag Tiger 88, the Fernand, the T28, T28 Prototype, AT-15. Tanks like that. Again, it's going to come as no surprise what I'm about to say next. They're just too slow. Especially because a lot of them have trash sides as well and can get outflanked so easily. They've usually got good guns, but most of the time you can't get them into good enough positions to use those guns. And by the time you get there, the fight's usually moved on to the next place. And yes, most of them have armor, so they're good at assaulting, but very, very situational, and I would not recommend them because, quite honestly, I don't think you're going to have a good day. You're going to get arty strike to hell as soon as you get tracked. You're going to get tracked. You're going to get circled. It's just not going to be fun for you guys. But yeah, like I say, they're all of your slower tank destroyers. And then, as well as that, SU-101 is not really a slow tank destroyer, and I think that this kind of goes with the Jagdpanther 2 as well. These, again, more towards the top end. They've got good guns. Gun depression isn't great. The Jagdpanther 2, the armor is not good enough, really, and it's a bit too inflexible for my liking. SU-101, again, terrible gun depression, and obviously a lot of this map relies on gun depression and things like that, so I just don't think it's a very good pick at all. Last couple of tanks, guys, and then I'm going to shut up. Like I say, if you do have any more, please just tell me. Last couple of bad tier tanks. The OHO, same with the VK100, and I'll group the KV4 in with this as well. And to a certain extent, the ISM, just too slow, and the guns aren't even that good to make up for it. They just rely on armor, and in this game mode, armor doesn't really matter, because if you can't pen something, you usually go shoot something else. There's enough tanks around that you're gonna shoot something else, and then once you're the last thing left, you get surrounded, you get out-circled, you get shredded by artillery strikes. You're just not going to have fun at all in them. They're just too slow, too fat. Need to lose a couple of pounds, as I'm looking at you, I-ho. But yeah, they are my picks for 2019 Frontlines, guys. Now, like I say, if there are any more tier 8 tanks that you want me to go specifically into, like the T-34, for example, I didn't put that anywhere. I'd probably put the average tier. I'm not going to go through this, otherwise I'll be here all day on all the tanks that I didn't do. Then please leave a comment in the comments. Ask me if you want to know. I will let you know. Obviously, as this is the first, what do they call it, episode of Frontlines, tanks might get buffed. If you're coming back and watching this in the 10th episode, some tanks might be buffed, some tanks might be nerfed. The meta might have changed completely. If it changes completely, I might do another one of these, but I can't see it changing that much. So, again, if you have any questions, anything like that, just please do ask me in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them as soon as I can. But yeah, like I said, guys, I hope this helped you out. I know this hasn't been the most glamorous video of all time, and this is me just talking at a camera, and if you haven't enjoyed it, then I'm sorry, but that's not what I'm going for with this. I'm going for informative. If you have found it useful in any way, if you've enjoyed the video in any way, please consider giving the video a like, guys. If you're new to the channel, and again, have found this helpful, whether it's now, whether it's episode 5, episode 10, who knows, then please consider subscribing. And other than that, good luck on Frontlines, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.